The Galactic Dominion ruled the stars with an iron fist. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology centuries ahead of most civilizations. When they issued a command, entire worlds obeyed without question. To resist the Dominion was to invite destruction. For years, they had heard whispers of humanity, an upstart race from a small blue planet on the edge of known space. At first, they ignored them. Earth was nothing compared to the vast might of the Dominion. But when humans began expanding beyond their home system, the Dominion took notice. A small human colony, New Horizon, had settled on a resource-rich moon. It was insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but when the Dominion demanded their surrender, the humans did something unthinkable. They refused. High Lord Varric, a ruthless Dominion commander, sat in the command throne of the warship Oblivion's Wrath. His red eyes glowed with anger as he read the transmission from New Horizon. "The humans reject our rule," his second-in-command, Selran, reported. "They claim independence." Varric let out a cold laugh. "Fools. They think they can stand against the Dominion." He turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleet. We will make an example of them." Within hours, a fleet of Dominion warships arrived in the skies above New Horizon. The human colony had no military defenses, only a few patrol ships. Against the Dominion's firepower, they stood no chance. Varric ordered an immediate attack. The first orbital bombardment reduced entire sections of the colony to flames. Cities burned, communications fell silent, and thousands perished in an instant. The few human ships that tried to resist were destroyed within minutes. Zelran sneered. "Pathetic. They crumbled like insects." But something was wrong. As the Dominion soldiers landed to secure the ruins, they found no signs of surrender. No desperate survivors begging for mercy. No terrified leaders offering peace. Instead, there was only silence. Varric frowned. "Where are the humans?" Then, a warning siren blared. Dominion ships in orbit detected an anomaly. An unidentified object moving at impossible speeds, heading straight for them. A single warship. It was massive, unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen before. Its hull was dark, almost like a shadow moving through the void, and it bore a symbol that struck fear into even the most hardened Dominion warriors. "A flag of Earth." Zelran's voice trembled. "High Lord, what is that?" Varric's eyes narrowed as he stared at the incoming warship. It was alone, yet it moved with the confidence of an entire fleet. And then, before the Dominion could react, the Earth warship fired. The first shot tore through the lead Dominion battleship as if it were made of paper. A massive explosion ripped through the sky, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. This was no ordinary warship. This was something far worse. Humanity had arrived, and the rulers of the stars were about to learn fear. The Galactic Dominion had fought countless battles across the stars. They had conquered entire civilizations, crushed rebellions before they could begin, and erased species that dared to resist. But in all their years of war, they had never seen anything like this. The Earth warship moved with an unnatural grace, its massive frame defying the laws of physics. It accelerated too fast for something of its size, and its energy readings were beyond anything the Dominion had encountered before. High Lord Varric stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship, Oblivion's Wrath, watching the horror unfold. How is this possible?" Selran stammered beside him. "The humans shouldn't have this kind of technology." The Dominion fleet had arrived expecting an easy victory. They had come to crush a helpless colony, not to fight an enemy with the power to wipe them out. Varric clenched his fists. "It doesn't matter how they got it. Destroy that ship. All batteries, fire." The order echoed through the fleet. Within seconds, a storm of plasma bolts and energy torpedoes filled the void, hurtling toward the lone Earth warship. Thousands of Dominion cannons unleashed their fury, lighting up the darkness of space with brilliant flashes of death. And then, something impossible happened. The Earth warship vanished. One moment it was there, a towering behemoth of metal and fire. The next, it was gone, as if the void itself had swallowed it whole. The Dominion's weapons passed harmlessly through the space where it had been, striking nothing but empty darkness. Panic spread through the fleet. Where did it go? Zelryn shouted, his claws digging into the control panel. It's still here, one of the Dominion officers screamed. It's just. A blinding light erupted behind them. The Earth warship reappeared in the middle of the Dominion formation, as if it had slipped through the very fabric of space. Before the Dominion could react, it unleashed its weapons. One shot. That was all it took. A single beam of energy, brighter than the heart of a star, shot out from the warship's forward cannons. It cut through the Dominion's second-largest battleship, the Spear of Dominion, like a hot knife through ice. There was no explosion, no debris scattered into the void. The battleship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a proud symbol of Dominion power. The next, it was gone, erased from reality in an instant. The Dominion officers stared in shock, their minds unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Varric felt his blood turn to ice. What kind of weapon was that? Before anyone could answer, the Earth warship moved again. It glided through the Dominion fleet like a ghost, appearing and disappearing at will. Each time it reappeared, another Dominion warship vanished from existence. No wreckage, no survivors, just erasure. Zelryn's voice was barely a whisper now. High Lord, we need to retreat. Varric turned to him, rage burning in his eyes. The Dominion does not run from lesser species. But deep inside, he knew Zelryn was right. This wasn't a battle. This was a slaughter. And for the first time in Dominion history, they were not the ones holding the blade. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. Their formations were broken, their tactics useless. They had fought hundreds of wars, crushed thousands of civilizations, and rewritten history with fire and blood. But never had they faced something like this. The Earth warship moved like a phantom, slipping through space in ways that defied understanding. One moment, it was on their left flank. The next, it reappeared behind them, its weapons cutting through their ships like paper. High Lord Varric gritted his teeth as another one of his battleships, the Crimson Fang, vanished in a flash of white light. There was no wreckage, no bodies, just empty space where a mighty warship had once stood. This is impossible, Zelryn muttered, his voice trembling. We outnumber them 100 to 1. And yet, Varric slammed his fist against the console. I don't care how powerful they are. Find a weakness. The Dominion ships adjusted their strategy. Instead of firing blindly, they spread out, trying to surround the Earth warship from all angles. But the human vessel was faster, smarter. It predicted their movements before they even made them. Every time the Dominion ships closed in, the warship was already gone, flickering in and out of existence like a ghost. And then it spoke. A deep mechanical voice echoed through every Dominion ship, not in their native tongue, but in a universal tone that sent chills down their spines. You who have slaughtered the weak, now face judgment. Varric's blood ran cold. This was not just a warship. It was something else entirely. For centuries, the Dominion had dismissed humanity as nothing more than a minor species, too primitive to be of any concern. They had never believed the rumors of Earth's lost fleets, the ancient legends that spoke of weapons beyond imagination. But now, standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet disintegrate around him, Varric realized the truth. The warship was not new. It was old, older than the Dominion itself. It had not been built, it had been awakened. A ship of a forgotten war. A weapon forged in an era when humanity had faced extinction and responded with power that should have never existed. Varric clenched his fists. We have to hit it with everything we have. Full power to all cannons. Target its core. The Dominion's remaining ships focused their fire. Beams of energy, torpedoes, and kinetic rounds streaked through space, converging on a single point, the heart of the Earth warship. For the first time, the warship did not move. The Dominion officers held their breath as the attacks landed. A brilliant explosion erupted around the ship, engulfing it in fire and light. The energy readings spiked beyond measure. Varric's eyes widened. Did we? The fire cleared. The warship was still there, untouched. And then something even more terrifying happened. The ship changed. Its smooth metallic hull began to shift, revealing layers of technology unseen in the galaxy. Strange glowing symbols spread across its surface, pulsing like the heartbeat of a god. The Dominion fleet's scanners went wild. Sir, the energy levels are increasing. They're off the scale. Varric turned to his crew, his heart pounding. What does that mean? The officer swallowed hard. It means it was holding back. And then the warship struck back. A pulse of energy erupted from its core, spreading out in a silent wave of destruction. Dominion ships flickered like candle flames caught in the wind. One by one, they vanished, erased from existence as if they had never been. The flagship's alarms blared. Systems flickered. The Dominion's most powerful warship, Oblivion's Wrath, was failing. Varric took a shaky breath. This wasn't just a battle. It was judgment, and humanity had just begun. Panic spread like wildfire across the Dominion fleet. Ship captains barked orders, their voices trembling as their vessels disappeared one by one. The Earth warship had done something impossible. It had turned the tide of battle alone. Varric stood frozen on the bridge of his flagship. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. This was no ordinary ship, no mere relic from a forgotten war. It was something else, something unstoppable. Sir, we've lost contact with the front lines. An officer shouted. They're just gone. No wreckage, no distress signals, nothing. Varric gritted his teeth. His fleet was crumbling like dust, and he had no idea how to stop it. We need to fall back, Selren whispered. His face had lost all color. We can't fight this. Varric's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair. The mighty Dominion did not retreat. They did not surrender. For centuries, they had ruled the stars with an iron fist. Entire civilizations had knelt before them. And now they were being hunted. His thoughts were interrupted by a strange sound, a deep hum that seemed to vibrate through his bones. The Earth warship was charging something. The Dominion scanners went haywire. Energy spike detected. It's off the charts. A massive rift tore open behind the warship, swallowing the void like a living shadow. Varric's eyes widened as the readings came in. It wasn't a portal. It was a gravitational weapon. A weapon strong enough to bend space itself. The voice returned, cold and final. Your reign ends here. The warship fired. A single shot. Not an explosion, not a beam of light, but a pulse, an invisible force that rippled through the fabric of reality. And in an instant, the Dominion fleet ceased to exist. No wreckage, no bodies, just silence. The once mighty fleet that had ruled the galaxy for centuries had been erased. On the bridge of the last remaining Dominion warship, Varric fell to his knees. He had never known fear, not truly, not until now. His flagship's systems flickered. The Earth warship was no longer attacking. It was simply watching, judging. For the first time in his life, High Lord Varric felt small. He had spent decades crushing weak species, burning planets, erasing histories. He had believed the Dominion was invincible. But humanity had just proved him wrong. Zelrond took a shaky breath. What do we do? Varric closed his eyes. He already knew the answer. We kneel. Varric had never knelt before anyone. The Dominion was the absolute power in the galaxy. The word of the High Lords was law. Their fleets were unmatched, and their enemies were nothing more than dust beneath their boots. For centuries, they had ruled through fear. Fear of their massive fleets, fear of their planet-killing weapons, fear of what happened to those who dared resist. And yet, as Varric watched the last remnants of his once mighty fleet flicker off the scanners, he realized something terrible. It had never been true. The Dominion had only ruled because no one had ever challenged them. Not truly. Not like this. The Earth warship had not just fought them. It had destroyed them. Effortlessly. The bridge of Varric's flagship was silent. Officers sat frozen in their seats, their eyes locked on the display screens that showed only emptiness where thousands of Dominion warships had once been. Varric could hear the shallow, panicked breathing of his second-in-command, Selran. The officer's hands gripped the edges of the console, his claws digging into the metal. His voice was barely above a whisper. "What are they?" No one had an answer. Then, the warship moved. Slowly, deliberately, it began to drift forward, closing the distance between itself and the last Dominion vessel. The black hull reflected nothing, like a hole cut out of space itself. Its weapons remained dark, its engines silent. It did not need to speak. It did not need to threaten. Its presence alone was enough. Varric's mind raced. There had to be a way out of this. There had to be some trick, some hidden power he could call upon. The Dominion had survived for centuries. Surely this was not the end. But as he looked around the bridge, he saw only fear. His crew did not look to him for orders. They did not expect salvation. They only waited for death. Varric clenched his fists. No, he would not die here. He turned sharply toward the helm officer. "Bring us about. Full retreat." The officer did not move. Varric's voice dropped into a growl. "That was a command, officer." The officer slowly turned his head, his reptilian eyes wide with terror. His mouth opened, but no words came. Instead, a new voice spoke, a voice that did not belong to any Dominion officer. There was nowhere left to run. The bridge went cold. Varric turned back to the main display, his blood freezing in his veins. The warship was now directly in front of them. It had moved without them noticing. And then, the lights flickered. Sparks danced along the consoles. The artificial gravity wavered for a brief second, sending small objects floating before slamming them back down. And suddenly, the Dominion warship was not alone. Across the display, ghostly outlines began to appear. At first, they looked like sensor glitches, static images flickering in and out. Then, they became real. One by one, massive warships emerged from the void. Their hulls bore no markings, their engines made no sound. They looked ancient, yet untouched by time. The bridge crew let out horrified gasps as the scanners failed to register the new ships. They were invisible to all Dominion technology. And yet, they were real. Selran's voice was hoarse. How is this possible?" Varric had no answer. His claws dug into the armrests of his command chair. His mind screamed at him to act, to fight, to survive. But there was nothing left to do. The Dominion fleet was gone. The Earth warship had called its fleet from nowhere. They had lost. For the first time in Dominion history, they had lost. And the punishment for failure was death. Varric's breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. His vision blurred. He had stood on countless burning worlds, listened to the screams of conquered enemies, laughed as civilizations begged for mercy. Now he understood them. Now he knew what it felt like. And the worst part, the silence on the bridge was suffocating. Varric could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, his claws still digging into the armrests of his command chair. Around him, his officers sat frozen, their faces pale, their breathing shallow. No one dared to speak. Across the void, the Earth warship and its ghostly fleet loomed, their presence sending waves of sheer terror through the remaining Dominion forces. For centuries, the Dominion had been the hunters, the masters of war, the rulers of the stars. But now, they were prey. Selran swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, what do we do?" Varric opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat. What could they do? Their fleet had been obliterated. Their weapons had failed. Their technology, the most advanced in the known galaxy, had proven useless. And worst of all, the enemy had not even spoken. There had been no grand declaration of war, no demands for surrender, no threats, only silence. The warship moved again, gliding forward with an eerie smoothness. The ghostly fleet followed, shifting like shadows, impossible to track with sensors. They were being watched. They were being judged. Varric's throat was dry. He had spent his entire life conquering weaker species, watching them beg for mercy, knowing there would be none. He had never begged. Not once. But now. His hands trembled as he reached for the communication console. The moment he activated it, the bridge lights flickered again. The screen went dark. The Dominion's advanced encryption systems collapsed in an instant, as if they were nothing but child's play to the enemy. Then, a voice, deep, cold, and unmistakably human. You ruled through fear. Now, fear will rule you. A chill ran down Varric's spine. The screen flickered back to life, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The Earth warship had changed. Its black hull shifted, the surface rippling like liquid metal. Strange symbols burned across it, ancient, unreadable, yet filled with purpose. The ship was alive. And then, for the first time, its weapons activated. Blue energy crackled along its edges, building, humming, whispering promises of destruction. The ghostly fleet followed, their forms distorting, pulsing with unreadable power. Zelrin gasped. They weren't even using their full strength. The realization hit Varric like a physical blow. The humans had held back. They could have wiped out the Dominion in an instant. Instead, they had watched, studied, waited. Why? A new possibility slithered into Varric's mind, one far worse than simple annihilation. What if this wasn't just revenge? What if the humans had always been watching? What if they had been waiting for the Dominion to grow overconfident, to weaken itself through arrogance, to become vulnerable? What if this war had never been the Dominion's to win? What if it had always been humanity's? Varric's claws clenched into fists. He had spent his life destroying civilizations. He had stood on the ashes of 100 worlds, laughing as their people begged for mercy. Now he would learn if humans knew how to show it. Taking a deep breath, he lowered his head. And for the first time in his life, Varric knelt. Silence filled the Dominion flagship's bridge. Varric remained on his knees, his head bowed, his heart pounding. The weight of his own surrender pressed down on him like a crushing force. Around him, his officers looked on in stunned disbelief. Never in Dominion history had a commander of his rank submitted. Never had the mighty conquerors of the stars been reduced to this. And yet there was no other choice. The Earth warship hovered before them, its weapons humming with barely restrained power. The spectral fleet surrounding it pulsed with an unnatural energy, shifting in ways that defied logic and science. Their mere presence sent a deep primal terror through Varric's core. He had thought he understood war. He had thought he understood power. But now, faced with this, he realized how small the Dominion truly was. The humans had never been weak. They had never been the desperate survivors the Dominion had believed them to be. No, this entire time, they had been something far worse. They had been patient. A new voice cut through the bridge's silence. It came from everywhere and nowhere, reverberating through the walls, through the air itself. Stand. Varric hesitated, then obeyed. His legs felt like stone as he rose, his movements slow, careful, submissive. The screen flickered again, and this time a figure appeared, a human. Unlike the primitive, desperate species the Dominion had mocked, this one exuded something terrifyingly calm. His face was unreadable, his eyes dark, deep, and filled with something beyond Varric's understanding. There was no anger, no hatred, only judgment. You have ruled through fear. The human's voice was steady, emotionless. Tell me Dominion Commander, do you fear now? Varric swallowed hard, his throat dry. He wanted to lie. He wanted to say that he was unshaken, that the Dominion would fight to the last breath. But the truth pressed against him like an unseen force. Yes, the human did not react. Good. The screen flickered again, and for a brief moment, Varric caught a glimpse of something behind the human. Something vast. Something alive. A war machine unlike anything he had ever seen. An artificial intelligence so advanced, so beyond his comprehension, that he could feel its gaze on him. Watching. Calculating. Judging. Then the human spoke again. Your empire ends today. Varric tensed, expecting the final blow, expecting to die. Instead, the warship powered down. The crackling blue energy along its hull faded. The ghostly fleet behind it shifted, their forms dimming, retreating into the shadows. Varric's breath caught in his throat. They weren't going to destroy him. They were going to let him live. And somehow, that was worse. Because now, the Dominion would never forget. For centuries, they had been the rulers of the stars, the unstoppable force, the nightmare that other civilizations feared. But now, they were the ones who would wake in terror every time they looked at the void, at the dark and endless reaches of space. They would wonder, were the humans still watching? Were they waiting? And if the Dominion ever dared to rise again, would the warship return? Would the judgment fall once more? Varric shuddered. The war was over, and the humans had won.